All right, so where do we leave off? I think we left off with the company you keep. So yeah, so these two individuals were pretty much alike, as much as they may not want to admit it, or he might not want to admit it, because that would be an admission of guilt. But I will start off with okay. So I do remember in the last episode I was telling you about how my sister, you know, moved out, and I think we all know why now. She finally got that courage, and good for her. She got the fuck out of there. Honestly, it wasn't a good place anyways. But all while she left, not her fault, not her fault. Things kicked up a notch at that house, and the screaming and the yelling always picked up. Financial problems came with losing the job. My mom working full time in different areas. And while she wasn't there, it was even worse. Our stepfather would pin us against each other. Me and my younger brother are constantly fighting, normal fighting, but also physically fighting. And he would allow it. Granted, maybe that taught us a thing or two. I don't know. It was fun as kids, but looking back on it now, totally irresponsible as a parent. So, but yeah, I would remember, you know, we would be so excited to go to our father's house on these visitations because we wouldn't have to do much of any, I guess you could say, chores, quote unquote. But our chores weren't normal chores for kids. As far as I know, I don't really know of any kids that have to clean dog shit and piss up inside the house constantly or live in it. I don't remember kids having to wake up in the middle of the night just to make a pot of coffee at like 11:30, 12 midnight when we have school the next day. Especially when your parents are sitting on the couch right next to the kitchen where they could get up off their ass and do it themselves. But no, um, you might as well just call your kids out of the room to do whatever the fuck you want them to do because you are too fucking lazy. And that's how that goes. But let's go back a little bit. And so yeah, our chores were not normal. That was just a little bit. But having to live in a house, granted, some people grew up with secondhand smoke and they're fine. Other people, not so fine. Secondhand smoke is a real thing, and I am totally dead against it. Probably because of my upbringing, but it's completely unhealthy. It's not normal to keep the doors closed, the windows closed, the AC going with cigarette smoke constantly going to the point where you can literally wipe it off the walls or the windows with your finger. You could wipe the nicotine and the tar off of these hard surfaces with your finger. And then you're sending your kids to school smelling like straight ashtrays and dog piss. And especially during a crucial point of high school where we are all finding our way. You're going to school smelling like dog piss and cigarettes. Of course, you're not going to have many friends, or teachers are going to assume that you smoked every time that you coughed or you got sick. You couldn't run in gym class, couldn't even run the fucking mile on time. You know what I'm saying? Because you're literally hacking out a fucking lung when you've never smoked a cigarette in your life. That is true. I've never smoked a cigarette in my life. But so let me get back on track here with my little notes. But yeah, so once my sister left, things kicked up a notch again. Not her fault. She escaped. Fast forward a little bit with all the regular chores, the regular manipulation, abuse, and whatnot. Any type of friends that me or my younger brother had, it was like pulling teeth just to try to hang out with them or to try to get permission to leave the house to do that, because God forbid things don't get done around the house, or God forbid they have to do it themselves. So it was almost like an indentured servant you know but we used to I remember there was points where we used to have our friends' parents talk to our parents to try to convince them to just let us out, just for a day, or to go to the mall, or something that regular kids do. So in those moments it was like fucking heaven. It was heaven outside of that house, trying to go to the mall, or even go to concerts and stuff like that. I tried every way I could to get out of there as a young kid. So, but fast forward again, I wound up taking over my mom's car loan just so I had a vehicle to go to school with, because, nobody wants to ride the bus. But little did I know there was an ulterior motive to that. My mom was in the market for getting a new car, and she couldn't afford it. So their idea was to have me take over the loan because I started a full-time job while still in high school. In 10th grade, I was working full-time at Walmart, So I'm working full-time at Walmart, from like 3 to, I think it was like 3 to 11 or 3 to 12 midnight. And then I would get up the next day and go to school. I would literally come home for an hour, get changed, and then go to work, at in 10th grade, just to maintain a car loan, and then cell phones came out. So I got myself a track phone, just paying the track phone bill, just trying to be the best, kid I could with what I had, and trying to just get my start in life at a young age, because I knew no matter what, I had to get the fuck out of there. My younger brother, he had it a little worse when it came to my stepfather and certain abuses, because he just, maybe it was smart. I think it was smart, but he just stopped arguing at some point. And he said, you know what? I'm just going to sit here, keep my mouth shut, let this man talk, and I'm not even going to waste my breath. And looking back on it now, I think that was fucking genius. I think that was genius, because with me, I'm too hard headed. I will always argue when I think I'm right, or for what's right, or for what is morally right for a group or for somebody. I don't know how to stop sometimes. I go and go and go and go. And I think he gave up on me because I was just too much of a headache to deal with. Because I always remember, him saying, John, you're a fucking problem. You have an answer for everything. You should have been a fucking lawyer, because I would always call him out on his bullshit, even at a young age. Granted, some of the times I didn't know better, but what I knew was right in my heart, I'm going to argue every step of the way, because I'm fucking stupid like that, I guess, but that's how it is. So I was constantly arguing. So I think I just gave him a headache and he didn't want to fucking deal with me. But, the abuse kept getting worse for him, for my younger brother, to the point where, he was like, fuck this. I'm moving out. And I don't remember what age, but he said he was moving out. And I'm like, oh shit, like I wish I can, not knowing that I could have, but I also didn't want to leave him. But, he wound up, saying, I want to move out. I remember my stepfather would always say, yeah, it's my job as a parent to make sure you graduate high school. So you're staying in this house under my roof, under my rules until you graduate high school. Well, I mean, I could understand that as a parent. I mean, how he was reacting and how he was talking was not, any way that a parent should. But that statement alone, I mean, yes, that is a responsible thing as a parent to do. Whether or not he was doing it out of just torturing, trying to keep my brother there to withstand the abuse, or to keep abusing him until he's done with him, or he had a mental clarity and he said, no, that's what I got to do as a parent. I highly doubt that. But, to each his own, whatever you want to believe there. But I was like, okay, I get it. Well, sure as shit, on graduation day, my younger brother moved out on graduation day. And I could respect that. He was great, and that was smart. It was a very smart move on his end too. So here I am sitting there, one out of three that left and stayed with our mom. The only one standing by. Why? I have no fucking clue. I went through life, different girlfriends, each of them having their place. I've always said that you have three loves in your life, and I'll get into that maybe in a different video, but they all serve their purpose, as I guess, as materialistic that sounds, but like it's true. We all have our relationships that don't work out for a reason. And there is absolutely 100% a reason, because look where you are now. So with that being said, we'll put that to the side. But yeah, so I'm by myself in this house doing everything imaginable besides wiping their asses. Like literally everything. So my nickname outside of the house, when I was at friends' houses, and one of my friends' fathers created it, but it was catchy and it actually sort of was true, was Cinderfella. I've always been Cinderfella, and some people see that as a young kid, I don't see it as being a pushover, but I just followed orders as a kid because I didn't know anything other than that. Sure, I might have argued here and there to prove my point, but by the end of the day, I always did what I was told to do. Whether or not it was right or wrong, it was normal to me. So, as time went on, cleaning the house, not just like cleaning, like sweeping and stuff. I mean, like deep cleaning the house as best as I can for my own good, too. Even as a young kid, I remember climbing up on the roof and cleaning the gutters at an age that I should not have been even up on a ladder, but I did it. And now I could do it. So, like I said, I try to find ways to use everything I've been through to better myself now. So, yeah. So, as the abuse was going on and whatnot, my brother left, the chores, which were not normal chores, cleaning up the dog piss and shit still to that day, with dogs that were way older than that, way older than what dogs should be even getting to. Keeping them around was sort of abuse at that point because they both went blind, they both went deaf, one had diabetes, and I get it, trust me. Unfortunately, we just had to put our dog down, and Coco was 15 years old for a pit bull. That's a long time to live, but it was time. We did the right thing. But, like I said, our chores were not normal chores as kids, and being there and living there at their beck and call for anything that they needed, even as far as borrowing money from me while I'm working. At this point, I'm already graduated from high school. I'm trying to figure my way out. The money that was after our father passed away, there was back child support due. Well, all that money that was supposed to go towards our education was completely blown, obviously not by us, but it was blown away. Finances were a constant problem in our house, and it created so many problems, and it didn't allow me to even get my life started as a young 20-year-old, I would say adult, but 21-year-old, you're still a kid sort of. But I couldn't even get my start, so I'm working this dead end retail job, trying to move up there as best as I could, which I don't regret it. I've learned a lot of things, moving up the ranks there, and then I moved over to another retail store. So, but all while this is going on, I was paying rent in a house that was completely a shithole. It was a fucking shithole. I'm paying rent for my bedroom, $660 a month for a 14 by 12 room, probably. And if you don't know, $660 then wasn't really that, that's a steep climb, because we're talking 2000, I'd probably say 2000, 2008, 2009, $660 a month for someone my age with a job like that basically took almost everything I had between, $660 rent. I had it was like a $300 payment for the Ford that was still under my mother's name. So technically I didn't own it. I'm paying her car payment. I'm paying her car insurance. I'm paying the rent. And I even paid a little bit towards groceries, even though I tried my best not to even eat in the house. But I paid extra for groceries. So basically I was tapped out. So whenever I was trying to hang out with my friends, a lot of them would always usually cover me, which if you're listening, thank you, because you don't know how much that actually meant. And I've always tried to pay back in whatever way I can, going through that. That's why I think I'm such a big giver now. But I will say, my stepfather, when he lost his job, that created a lot of financial hardship. And I think they sort of conjured that plan together to try to make it easier on them. So if they could take some money from me, make it easier for them, what do they care? Because I have my whole life ahead of me, they would say, but yet not even giving me a bone to get it started. So, like my stepfather, he wasn't working, but he started to get these disability. He was trying hard to get on disability, so he didn't have to work, and it worked. So he got disability based on, I guess, a mental health disorder, bipolar, which I didn't even know was possible. So, but yeah. So one day they sat me down And they mentioned, sure, I'm paying rent and whatnot, but they can't really keep up with the mortgage. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't keep up with the mortgage? You know? And they said, well, we're gonna have to claim bankruptcy. And this, time hopping again, this is right before my brother moved out, my younger brother. And they said, all right, we're trying to go for this refinance, but we don't have enough income to qualify. And me, being a helper, a giver, and always caring about my younger brother who lived with us. And I'm like, man, I was like, well, we have nowhere else to go. I was like, well, I'll sign it. I'll sign it. I can't really help out anymore financially because I'm already giving you guys rent. No, 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 you don't have to do that. We just need you to sign it. Are you okay with signing it? Almost as if I had a choice. I didn't have a choice at that age, or at that time. I had nowhere else to go. We had nowhere else to go. You know what I'm saying? And then you also have to fear their retaliation at that point too, as at a young age. So, looking back on it now, horrible decision, but I signed it, so they could qualify for this refinance. So it could lower the mortgage payment. And well, we did that. Time went on. It was a variable rate, I guess, that they signed. So the payment went back up and we were back on the same boat. Probably about 2 to 3 years later, it felt like. Now we're back in the same boat, and I'm being told that they're claiming bankruptcy. And then I was sat down and told that I might want to claim bankruptcy too because I signed the mortgage. So as a young guy, I'm like, the fuck? It's like the only debt I have is my name attached to this house because at that time I didn't have any credit cards. I didn't have any real bills, I barely had anything to myself. So I was like, wait, I got to claim bankruptcy. They're like, yeah, but don't worry. We're going to refer you to our lawyer and he'll give you a good discount. And that was even more appalling because I'm like, wait a minute. I got to pay for my own bankruptcy because of a house that I signed for you that I'm not even really responsible for in the first place. Now I have to pay for my own bankruptcy for your fucking mistake, which is just wild. So went through it, did the whole bankruptcy, paid for it, went to court, finally got it done, still lived there, still paying $660 a month for my rent, which is just wild after all of that. But I was stuck. And sometimes we do feel stuck and we don't see any type of options around us, but just know that there are always options. It's just sometimes you have to take that step back, take a breather, maybe talk to somebody, and they can help you find out different, avenues and different roads to take. So at this point, bankruptcy is already done. It's not discharged, but it's already done. And it's probably about, I want to say, maybe 2 years after the filing of bankruptcy. They're still trying to, figure out the whole mortgage situation because even though you claim bankruptcy, now the bank has to foreclose. There's so many different things that the bank needs to get in order to foreclose. And I guess it took them about 8 years to fucking foreclose, which is wild. So we're sitting here squatting in a house for 8 years. I'm still paying them rent at this point for a house that's not even being paid for. He's still getting his Social Security disability. My mother's still working here and there. And they're still collecting my money at the same time as me still doing the chores as Cinderfella. At the same time as still hearing all this fucking abuse and this verbal abuse and this manipulation and talking so much crap about good people that have helped them out in the past before. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. So I went ahead and I got a new job at Adams, which is another retail store around here. And great people to work for. And my younger brother, being out of the house for a couple of years at that point, he was the one who referred me to that job. And I thank him still to this day. I was afraid to leave the other one because I was there for so long. I got too comfortable, too complacent, and I didn't want to leave my comfort zone. And you guys know how I feel about the comfort zone. In order to grow, you got to break it. So I broke it, and I wound up going there part-time at first. Then they convinced me to leave Walmart and go there full-time. So I did, making a little bit more money. Well, with a little bit more money being made and my parents finding out, the rent goes up again. Until one day I just finally I had enough. I forget what was the pivotal, point for me, or what turned to me and said, you know what, you need to figure something out now. I forget what it was, but something made me say, you know what, I'm going to try to fucking move out. So one of my good coworkers, really good guy, Chris, and his girlfriend wound up having a house that they were renting from her father. So they offered me to move upstairs in this Cape Cod for 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. And they were like, yeah, $300 a month is fine. I'm like, are you kidding me? That's less than half of what I'm paying right now for my bedroom. So I grew the balls and I said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to do it. And it was a shit show when I let them know. They were shit talking me like crazy. After everything I've done for them, they were trying to convince me not to. Obviously, it makes sense now as an adult. You look back on it, you're like, well, that's because they were losing their paycheck. They were losing that money. They were losing too much from me moving out. But I chose to do it. And this was, during a health scare that my stepfather had, I guess, with his heart. So they saw it as like, wow, that's so immoral and stuff like that. But I had to do what I had to do. So I moved out, and this is the first time I've ever escaped from that house. And boy, it felt great. It felt great to escape, knowing that I was gonna miss the dogs because it wasn't their fault. But I left that house and I felt amazing. I didn't even know what cigarettes smelled like until I went back to visit one day. And then I realized, wow, that's what I smelled like this whole time: cigarettes and dog piss. And the combo is unbearable. But so I left, had a great time, being roommates. But, I was a wild child at that time. I moved out and I didn't know what it was like to actually do whatever the fuck I wanted. So I'm having parties, I'm hanging out with friends. I would even call it inconsiderate at sometimes. I'll admit that, we're up late being loud while the two roommates are still downstairs trying to get their life together. So, I was just letting loose. I was finally living my life. Fast forward, I'm going through the hiring process for corrections while living by myself. I wound up getting a different vehicle. I bought a Mitsubishi 3000 GT from a friend, nice little sports car. Went back and forth, what I'm saying, to work with that. And then one day my mother hit me up, and I do remember she came over, and I didn't even let her in the house. Like, we sat in her car out in the parking lot or out in the roundabout, and we talked. I remember it was raining, and she wasn't really pleading with me to come back, but I could tell that it was a lot. There was a lot going on. You're trying to take care of somebody who has, mental problems, health problems, um just an overall horrible person to be around, and are, manipulative. And you could tell that the abuse was wearing down on her because he had no one else to abuse. He was abusing her. And she didn't see it like that. She will never see it like that, I guess. But, to each his own. If you can't take that step back, then unfortunately that's on you. There's only so much you can do as a loved one trying to help somebody out. But if they don't want to be helped, it's almost, you're wasting your energy. So, so we sat down, and I remember her saying, like, she asked if I was able to come back home, and if I wanted to. I was honest. I said no. I said I don't want to. I don't think I'm ready to come back home. And she had the attitude of, like, just cut this out, as if I was doing something wrong. Like, all right, we've had enough of your adolescent. You just come back home, and that was the overall attitude, which made me even fight even more not to go back. But me, I knew I was sort of, biding my time at the current living situation because, I'm sort of overstaying my welcome, just living my life and just partying. And so I knew my time was limited. I didn't want to go back home, but I didn't really have an option. So, and I did miss the dogs. As stupid as that sounds, I miss the dogs out of everybody. I don't miss any of the work, nothing like that. But I did turn around and I said, you know what? I'm thinking, like, now I have the upper hand. So I was like, I'm not coming back, but I will come back under one condition. And she's like, well, what is that? I was like, I'm paying $300 a month for rent. I want to pay the same there. She's like, well, I don't know if he's gonna like that. I was like, well, then I could just stay here. I could just stay here. I don't have to come back home. And she's like, well, I'll see what I could do, this and that. A day went by, and then she was like, all right, he says it's okay, at 350, so it's like $50 more, which is still more than what I was paying currently, but way less than what I was paying before I left the house. So I agreed at that time. And then with time, obviously, you know, I'm back at home, and it wasn't too much longer where everything started again. Everything went back to quote unquote normal, and I was doing all the same shit, you know. And then rent slowly started to increase with them knowing that I had nowhere else to go. And I continued to work at Adams while paying for rent for the bedroom. Now it's back up to like 600 or somewhere around there at that time. And I'm going through the tail end of the hiring process for corrections. So I did that. I went through the academy, still paying rent, which, when you start the academy, you're not even getting paid, at all really for that first couple of weeks, which sucked. So I was still expected to pay rent, even though I was only there one day out of the week because I met a girl right before the hiring process who is now my wife. And I will say, I don't want to make her head too big, but, she was a life changer. That's someone who definitely opened up the doors for me, opened up my thinking, was able to wake me up on what exactly was going on, and made me see how I was totally being taken advantage of and completely controlled, which was a complete gift within itself. And I thank God every day for that. But, while I was working at Adams, I'm still paying rent and going through the academy. And like I said, I finally made it through the academy, and I made it into corrections. I made it to the facility I was working at, and still paying rent and barely being home because I was hanging out with my girlfriend at the time as much as I possibly could, because why would I want to go home? So I was basically just paying for a place to keep my stuff. It was basically storage. And then it just got to the point where I was like, I need to get the fuck out. So I finally made it out. I finally made it out. But and that's where the next chapter would start. I'll fill in the blanks here and there, but it's just wild, the ride that you're on in life and where you are today. And I will say everything that I've been through, I've used it as a tool to get where I'm at today. And I just hope that, whatever comes out of this, my story that I'm doing will help people. I'll be able to fill in the gaps with some more episodes here and there, maybe with some more, memories. But for now, I'll leave you with that note, and I'll start the next episode. See ya.